The summer sun was setting over the small town of Pine Ridge, Montana. The mountains stood tall in the distance, their peaks touched by golden light. It was a peaceful place, far from the noise of big cities. But peace had become rare since the aliens arrived 3 years ago. Daniel Cole sat on his porch, watching the sky turn orange and red. He was 45 years old, with gray in his short hair and scars on his hands from 20 years as a Navy SEAL. He had seen war in places most people could not find on a map. He had killed enemies and watched friends die. But none of that prepared him for losing his wife to cancer 2 years ago. Now, his only reason to live was his son. Kevin Cole was 19, home from college for the summer. He had his mother's kind eyes and his father's stubborn nature. The boy walked out onto the porch with 2 cups of coffee and handed one to his father. "Beautiful evening," Kevin said. Sitting down, Daniel nodded. "Your mother loved this time of day." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky. In the distance, a Zarth patrol ship flew over the mountains. The aliens had come to Earth claiming they wanted peace and cooperation. The Galactic Council said they were here to help humanity join the larger universe. But Daniel had met enough liars to recognize another one. The Zorth were 7 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. They called themselves peacekeepers, but they acted like conquerors. They pushed humans around, took what they wanted, and the Galactic Council always protected them with something called diplomatic immunity. "I'm going into town," Kevin said, standing up. "Need anything? Be careful around those soldiers." Kevin smiled. "I always am, Dad." Daniel watched his son drive away, feeling the familiar worry that never left him. He had taught Kevin to be brave, to stand up for what was right. But sometimes he wished he had taught him to keep his head down instead. The town center was busy when Kevin arrived. Humans and a few alien visitors walked between shops and restaurants. Most aliens were peaceful, curious about Earth and its people. But the Zorath soldiers standing near the fountain were not like the others. There were 4 of them, their weapons visible on their belts. They had surrounded a human family, a man, a woman, and their young daughter. The father was on his knees, his face bloody. "Please," the man begged. "We did nothing wrong." Commander Vexer stood over him. The Zorath officer was larger than his soldiers, with cold black eyes that showed no mercy. "You looked at me with disrespect. On my world, that is punishable by death." The little girl was crying, hiding behind her mother. Nobody in the crowd moved to help. They all knew what happened to humans who challenged the Zorath. Kevin felt his heart pounding. His father's voice echoed in his mind, telling him to walk away, to stay safe. But he also remembered his father's other lessons about protecting those who could not protect themselves. He stepped forward. "Commander," Kevin said, his voice calm and steady, "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. This family means no disrespect. We're just not used to galactic customs yet." Vexer turned slowly, his forearms crossing over his chest. "And who are you, little human?" "Just a student. But I know the Galactic Treaty says peacekeepers should help civilians, not hurt them." The crowd went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Vexer's eyes narrowed. "You dare quote law to me? You dare tell me how to do my duty? I meant no offense. I'm just asking for mercy." The Zorath commander moved faster than Kevin expected. One of his 4 hands grabbed Kevin's throat and lifted him off the ground. Kevin grabbed at the alien's arm, but it was like trying to move stone. "Mercy," Vexer said, "is weakness. And your species is already weak enough." He threw Kevin to the ground. The young man gasped for air, but he did not run. He stood up slowly, facing the commander. "Let them go," Kevin said. "Please." For a moment, something flashed in Vexer's eyes. It might have been surprise. Humans usually begged for themselves, not for strangers. But then the surprise turned to anger. You want to be a hero? Vexer drew his weapon, a blade that glowed with alien energy. Then die like one. The blade went through Kevin's chest before anyone could scream. Daniel was cleaning his rifle when he heard the sirens. Something in his gut twisted, a feeling he had learned to trust in combat. He grabbed his keys and drove toward town. The crowd was still there when he arrived, standing in a circle around something on the ground. People moved aside when they saw Daniel's face. They knew who he was. They knew whose son lay dead in the center of the square. Daniel fell to his knees beside Kevin's body. The boy's eyes were still open, staring at the evening sky he would never see again. Blood soaked the ground beneath him. "No," Daniel whispered. "No, no, no." He pulled his son into his arms, holding him like he did when Kevin was a baby. The crowd watched in silence. Some cried. None of them had tried to help. A human official approached carefully. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry. We filed a complaint with the Galactic Council." "A complaint?" Daniel's voice was hollow. "The Zorath have diplomatic immunity. There's nothing we can do legally. The council will review the case, but nothing will happen." The official looked at the ground. "I'm sorry." Daniel carried his son's body to his truck. He drove home slowly, the weight of Kevin's body in the back seat heavier than anything he had ever carried. He buried his son next to his wife, under the old oak tree where they used to have picnics. That night, Daniel stood at the grave with a bottle of whiskey. He drank until he could not feel his legs, but he could still feel the hole in his chest where his heart used to be. He had nothing left. No wife, no son, no reason to live, but he had a reason to kill. The next morning, Daniel packed a bag with supplies and weapons. He left his house without looking back and drove deep into the mountains. He did not know where he was going. He did not care. He just needed to be away from people, away from the world that had taken everything from him. He walked for 2 days, deeper into the wilderness than most humans ever went. On the third night, sitting by a small fire, he felt something watching him. Daniel looked into the dark forest. His hand moved to his knife, but he did not draw it. Part of him hoped it was something dangerous. Part of him hoped it would end his pain. 2 shapes emerged from the shadows. They were massive, 8 feet tall, covered in dark fur, with eyes that reflected the firelight. They were not aliens. They were something far older. Daniel stared at the creatures he had always thought were myths, and they stared back at him as if they had been waiting for him all along. Daniel did not move. His hand stayed near his knife, but something told him these creatures were not here to kill him. If they wanted him dead, he would already be dead. The larger one stepped closer to the fire. In the orange light, Daniel could see him clearly 8 feet tall, with thick brown fur covering his entire body. His face was almost human, but wider, with deep-set eyes that held centuries of wisdom. Scars ran across his chest and arms, marks of a life spent fighting and surviving. The second creature was smaller but still massive. 7 feet tall with darker fur and younger features. His eyes burned with barely controlled anger, and his muscles tensed like he was ready to attack at any moment. "You are far from your people," the larger one said. Daniel's eyes widened. The creature's voice was deep and rough, but the words were clear English. "You can talk," Daniel said. "We have watched your kind for thousands of years. We learned your languages long ago." The creature sat down across the fire from Daniel, moving with surprising grace for his size. "I am Grok. This is my nephew, Tarn." Tarn did not sit. He paced behind his uncle, watching Daniel with suspicion. "Why show yourselves to me?" Daniel asked. "Your kind is hidden from humans forever, because you are not like other humans," Grok said. "You carry death in your eyes. You have killed many times. I was a soldier. We know. We watched you enter our mountains. We saw the way you move, the way you read the land. You are a hunter. Grok leaned forward. And you are hunting the gray ones. Daniel felt something stir in his chest. The Zoroth. Yes, they came to our world and brought only pain. They call themselves peacekeepers, but they are butchers. Tarn stopped pacing. They took my sister 3 months ago. They take our people and do terrible things to them. Experiments. Torture. Sport. Daniel's voice was cold. They hunt us for fun, Grok said. They think we are animals, too stupid to matter. They have a base hidden in these mountains. That is where they keep the ones they capture. Daniel stared into the fire. The Zoroth had killed his son because they thought humans were beneath them. Now he learned they were doing the same to these creatures, hunting them, experimenting on them, treating them like prey. Why not attack them yourselves? Daniel asked. You're strong enough to tear them apart. Strength is not enough, Grok admitted. They have weapons we do not understand. They have technology that sees in the dark and through walls. Every time we try to get close, they know we are coming. 3 of our warriors died trying to rescue the prisoners. Tarn slammed his fist against a tree, cracking the bark. We are not soldiers. We are survivors. We know how to hide, how to live in the shadows. But we do not know how to fight a war. Daniel looked at the young Sasquatch. He saw the same pain in Tarn's eyes that lived in his own heart. The desperate need to save someone you love. The rage that comes when you cannot. I know how to fight a war, Daniel said. I spent 20 years learning how to kill enemies who had better numbers and better weapons. Grok studied him carefully. Why would you help us? We are not your people. The Zoroth killed my son. They murdered him in the street, and nobody did anything about it. The Galactic Council gave them immunity. The law protected them. Daniel's hands curled into fists. But there is no law in these mountains. Out here, there is only strength and will. I have plenty of both. Tarn moved closer, his anger replaced by something like hope. You can help us save my sister? I can do more than that. I can teach you how to make the Zoroth afraid. I can show you how to turn this forest into their grave. Daniel stood up, facing both Sasquatch. But if we do this, we do it my way. You follow my orders. You trust my plans. Can you do that? Grok and Tarn exchanged a long look. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Finally, Grok nodded. We accept your terms, human. We will follow your lead. Daniel felt something he had not felt since holding his son's body purpose. It was dark and bloody, but it was something to live for. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel transformed the Sasquatch into weapons. They were already strong beyond anything he had seen. Tarn could lift a boulder that weighed 1,000 pounds. Grok could move through the forest without making a sound, despite his massive size. But they had no discipline, no tactics. Daniel taught them how to set ambushes. He showed them how to use the terrain as a weapon, falling trees, hidden pits, natural choke points. He trained them to attack and disappear before the enemy could respond. The Zoroth think they are the apex predators, Daniel explained one night. They've conquered dozens of worlds. They've never met anything they couldn't kill. That is their weakness. How is that a weakness? Tarn asked. Because they are arrogant. They do not expect a real fight. They do not expect prey to become hunters. Daniel drew a map in the dirt. We will hit their patrols first. Small attacks, quick kills. We take their weapons, learn their technology. We make them paranoid. And then? Grok asked. Then we go after the base. We free your people. And we make Commander Vexer pay for every life he has taken. Tarn smiled, showing teeth that could crush bone. I like this plan. On the 10th day, a Zoroth patrol entered the deep forest. 5 soldiers, armed with plasma rifles and scanning equipment. They were searching for Sasquatch specimens, laughing about how easy the hunting would be. They never saw the attack coming. Tarn dropped from a tree onto the first soldier, crushing him before he could scream. Grok emerged from the bush and grabbed 2 more, slamming their heads together with enough force to crack their helmets. The 4th soldier tried to run, but Daniel was waiting with a knife he had taken from a dead Zorath weeks ago. The 5th soldier, a young officer, fell to his knees and begged for mercy. Daniel stood over him, the alien blade in his hand. "Where is the base? Where are the prisoners?" The soldier talked. He told them everything: the location of the base, the number of guards, the layout of the prison cells. When he was done, Daniel knocked him unconscious and tied him to a tree. "Why not kill him?" Tarn asked. "Because he will tell others what happened here. He will describe the monsters that came from the forest. Fear is a weapon too." Grok nodded with respect. "You think like a predator." "No," Daniel said. "I think like a human." And that's something the Zorath should have learned to fear a long time ago. That night, they watched the Zorath base from a distant ridge. It was built into the side of a mountain, hidden from human satellites by alien technology. Patrol ships came and went. Guards stood at every entrance. "There are too many," Tarn said quietly. "Not for long," Daniel replied. "I know someone who can help us. Someone who hates the Zorath as much as we do." He pulled out an old radio from his pack. It was military-grade, encrypted, and only one person in the world had the matching frequency. Daniel pressed the button. "Lisa, this is Ghost. You there?" Static. Then a woman's voice, sharp and surprised. "Danny, I thought you were dead." "Not yet. But I'm about to start a war, and I could use a medic." A long pause. Then, "Tell me where." "I'm in." Daniel looked at his strange new allies, 2 creatures from legend, standing beside a broken soldier. Together, they would make the Zorath wish they had never come to Earth. "Get some rest," he told them. "Tomorrow, we start hunting." Lisa Martinez arrived 3 days later. She came alone, driving an old truck filled with medical supplies and weapons she had collected over the years. She was 40 years old, with short black hair and the steady hands of a surgeon. 12 years in the army as a combat medic had taught her how to save lives. But the Zorath had taught her how much she wanted to take them. When she first saw Grok and Tarn, she did not scream or run. She just looked at them for a long moment, then looked at Daniel. "Bigfoot," she said flatly. "You're fighting aliens with Bigfoot." "They prefer Sasquatch," Daniel replied. Lisa shook her head and laughed. It was a tired, bitter sound. "You know what? After everything I've seen, this actually makes sense." She had her own reasons to hate the Zorath. 2 years ago, a squad of her soldiers died during a joint training exercise with Zorath peacekeepers. The aliens called it an accident. But Lisa had seen the bodies. The wounds were not from any accident. The Galactic Council buried the investigation. The Zorath officers faced no punishment. And Lisa left the military, unable to serve a government that let murderers go free. "So what's the plan?" she asked. Daniel spread out a map on a flat rock. It showed the Zorath base and the surrounding forest. He had marked patrol routes, guard positions, and the location of the prison cells deep inside the mountain. "We've been hitting their patrols for 2 weeks. 8 soldiers dead, 3 more scared enough to talk. The Zorath know something is hunting them, but they don't know what." He pointed to the base. "Commander Vexer is getting paranoid. He's doubled the guard rotation and limited patrols to daylight hours." "That's good, right?" Lisa asked. "It means he's scared. But it also means the base is more protected than before. We can't attack it head-on." Grok spoke up. "My people are still inside. Every day we wait, more of them might die. I know. Daniel's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "That's why we're changing tactics. We're going to make Vexer so afraid that he makes a mistake." Tarn grinned. "More killing? Smarter killing. We're going to turn this forest into a nightmare." Over the next week, Daniel and his team launched a campaign of terror against the Zorth. They never attacked the same way twice. Sometimes it was an ambush on a patrol. Sometimes it was traps that killed soldiers without anyone ever seeing the attackers. Once, they snuck into a Zorth camp at night and killed half the soldiers in their sleep. The surviving soldiers spread fear with every report. They spoke of monsters that appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. They described creatures that could not be killed by plasma fire, that moved faster than any animal they had ever seen. Some soldiers refused to enter the forest at all. Lieutenant Drax, Commander Vexer's second-in-command, laughed at the reports. He was a younger Zorth, eager to prove himself and certain of his species' superiority. "They are just animals," he told his soldiers. "Large primates with lucky attacks. I will lead the next patrol myself and end this nonsense." Drax took 20 soldiers into the forest the next morning. They had the best weapons, the best armor, and scanning technology that could detect heat signatures from 100 meters away. Daniel watched them from a ridge, using a scope he had taken from a dead Zorth officer. He clicked his radio twice, the signal for Grok and Tarn to begin. The Sasquatch did not attack directly. Instead, they moved through the trees, always staying just outside the scanner's range. They threw rocks that landed behind the patrol, making soldiers spin around in fear. They made sounds, low growls and distant roars, that echoed through the forest until the Zorth could not tell which direction they came from. Within an hour, the patrol was jumpy and exhausted. They shot at shadows. They argued with each other. Drax screamed at them to stay calm, but his own voice was shaking. Then Daniel struck. He had positioned himself in a tree overlooking the patrol's path. When Drax passed beneath him, Daniel dropped down and drove his knife into the gap between the lieutenant's helmet and armor. The blade went through Drax's neck before he could make a sound. Daniel rolled away as plasma fire erupted around him. But he was already gone, vanishing into the brush like smoke. The remaining soldiers panicked. They fired in every direction, hitting nothing but trees. Then Grok and Tarn charged from opposite sides, moving so fast that the scanners barely registered them. It was over in seconds. 18 soldiers dead. 2 fled back to the base, screaming about demons in the forest. That night, Commander Vexer reviewed the footage from Drax's helmet camera. He watched Daniel appear from nowhere and kill his second-in-command with a single strike. He watched the 2 massive creatures tear through his soldiers, like they were made of paper. For the first time in his long military career, Vexer felt something he had never felt before. Fear. He sent a report to the Galactic Council, requesting reinforcements. But the Council was slow to respond. They were busy with other matters, other worlds. Earth was supposed to be a simple assignment. The idea that anything on this primitive planet could threaten Zorth soldiers was absurd. Vexer did not wait for their answer. He ordered all patrols canceled and put the base on full lockdown. Every entrance was guarded. Every scanner was running at maximum range. No one went in or out without his personal approval. But Daniel did not need to enter the base. Not yet. He needed information first. And he got it from an unlikely source. Lisa had been monitoring Zorth communication frequencies using equipment she had brought from her military days. Most of it was encrypted, impossible to decode. But some of the lower-ranking soldiers used unsecured channels to complain about their assignment. "They're scared," Lisa reported one evening. "Really scared. Half of them think this forest is cursed. The other half think Earth was a trap set by some enemy species." "Any mention of the prisoners?" Daniel asked. Yes, they're being held in the lowest level of the base. About 30 Sasquatch total. Most are in bad shape from the experiments. She paused. They're planning to execute them all if the attacks continue. Vexer thinks it will remove our reason to fight. Tarn snarled. We attack now, tonight. No. Daniel's voice was firm. That's what he wants. He's trying to force us into a direct fight while he still has the advantage. Then what do we do? Daniel looked at the base in the distance. Lights glowed from its entrance, and patrol ships circled overhead like mechanical vultures. We make him come to us. We capture one of his officers and make sure Vexer knows about it. His pride won't let him sit behind walls while we hold one of his people. Grok nodded slowly. You want him to leave the base. I want him angry and stupid. Angry people make mistakes, and stupid people die. The next morning, they captured a Zorath captain who had been sent to inspect the perimeter defenses. They left his squad dead and took him deep into the mountains. Then they sent a message on the Zorath emergency frequency, a simple recording of the captain begging for his life. Vexer received the message in his command center. His four hands gripped the console so hard that the metal bent. Prepare my personal guard, he ordered. We end this now. His advisors tried to stop him. They warned him about the danger, the unknown enemy, the risk of leaving the base. But Vexer's pride was stronger than his fear. He would lead the hunt himself. And he would make the humans pay for every soldier they had killed, exactly as Daniel had planned. Vexer left the base with 40 of his best soldiers. They marched into the forest with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. Scanners swept every direction. Drones flew overhead, searching for heat signatures among the trees. The commander was done playing games. He would burn the entire forest if that was what it took to destroy his enemies. But Daniel was not in the forest. He was watching the base dot from his position on a nearby ridge. Daniel counted the guards left behind. With Vexer gone, the base was defended by only 60 soldiers, still a large force, but spread thin across multiple entrances and guard posts. He clicked his radio. Grok, Tarn. Status? We are in position, Grok replied. His voice was calm. The Grey One and his army are moving east, deeper into the mountains. They will not return for several hours. Lisa? Ready. Her voice came through clear. The prisoners are on the lowest level. I can guide you through the ventilation system to avoid the main corridors. Daniel turned to look at the two Sasquatch crouched beside him. They were not alone. During the past week, word had spread among the hidden Sasquatch tribes. 6 more warriors had joined them, brothers, fathers, and friends of those imprisoned inside the base. They were ready to fight and die for their people. Remember the plan, Daniel said. We move fast and quiet. Free the prisoners. Get them to the forest. Disappear before Vexer returns. Tarn shook his head. I want to face him. I want to tear him apart. You'll get your chance. But not today. Today is about saving lives. They moved down the ridge as darkness fell. The base's lights created pools of brightness around each entrance, but there were shadows between them. Shadows were all Daniel needed. He had studied Zorath's security systems during his weeks of hunting. He knew their scanners had blind spots, places where the terrain blocked their signals. He led his team through these gaps, moving closer to the base with every step. The first guard died silently. Daniel came up behind him and drove a blade through the weak point under his arm. The body fell without a sound. The second and third guards went down just as quickly. Tarn and Grok moved like nightmares made real, killing with their bare hands before the Zorath could cry out. Within minutes, they had cleared the eastern entrance. Daniel used an access card, taken from a dead officer, to open the door. Inside, the base was a maze of metal corridors and humming machines. Alien symbols marked the walls. The air smelled like chemicals and something worse, the smell of blood and pain. "Left at the next junction," Lisa said through the radio. "There's a stairway that leads down to the prison level." They moved through the base like ghosts. The few soldiers they encountered died before they could raise an alarm. The Sasquatch were terrifying in these close quarters. Too fast to shoot, too strong to stop. Daniel had seen many warriors in his life, but nothing like this. The prison level was cold and dark. Cells lined both walls, each one holding a Sasquatch in chains. Most were weak, barely able to stand. Some had wounds that would never fully heal. But they were alive. Tarn found his sister in the last cell. Kira was thin and scarred, her fur matted with dried blood. But when she saw her brother, tears filled her eyes. "You came," she whispered. "I will always come for you." Tarn broke her chains with his bare hands and held her gently. "Can you walk?" "I can try." Daniel moved from cell to cell, freeing prisoners as fast as he could. The other Sasquatch warriors helped their people stand and walk. Some had to be carried. "We need to move," Daniel said. "The guards will notice their patrols are missing soon." They were halfway to the exit when the alarm started. Red lights flashed through the corridors. A voice announced in Zorath that intruders had been detected. Heavy footsteps echoed from somewhere above them. "New route," Lisa said urgently. "Take the next right. There's a cargo tunnel that leads outside." They ran. The freed prisoners moved as fast as they could, supported by the warriors. Daniel stayed at the back, watching for pursuit. It came quickly. A squad of Zorath soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor, weapons raised. Daniel dropped 2 of them with shots from a plasma rifle he had taken earlier. Grok charged the rest, scattering them like leaves in a storm. "Keep moving," Daniel shouted. The cargo tunnel was wide enough for the Sasquatch to run side by side. Emergency lights flickered overhead. The exit was close. Daniel could see moonlight at the end. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows. Ahead of them, Commander Vexer. Daniel's heart froze. Vexer should have been miles away, chasing ghosts in the forest. But here he stood, blocking their escape, a cruel smile on his gray face. "Did you think I would fall for such an obvious trap?" Vexer said. "I sent my soldiers into the forest, yes, but I stayed behind. I knew you would come for the animals." Tarn snarled and moved forward, but Daniel held him back. "Let me guess," Daniel said. "You wanted to face me yourself." "I wanted to look into the eyes of the human who thought he could challenge the Zorath." Vexer drew his blade, the same kind of blade that had killed Kevin. "Your son died on his knees, begging for mercy. I wonder if you will do the same." Something cold settled over Daniel. The grief and rage that had burned inside him for weeks became still and focused like a laser. "My son didn't beg," Daniel said quietly. "He stood up for innocent people. He was braver than you will ever understand. Bravery is meaningless without power. Then let's see how much power you have." Daniel attacked. Vexer was faster and stronger, with 4 arms and decades of combat training. But Daniel had something the Zorath commander did not. He had nothing left to lose. They fought through the tunnel, blades clashing, fists flying. Vexer cut Daniel's arm, his leg, his side. Blood soaked through Daniel's clothes. But he did not stop. He kept coming, kept fighting, kept pushing the commander back. "Why won't you die?" Vexer roared, "Because I made a promise." Daniel ducked under a swing and drove his knife into Vexer's lower arm. The commander screamed. "I promised my son I would make you pay." Vexer stumbled. For the first time, fear showed in his black eyes. Daniel did not give him time to recover. He attacked with everything he had left: years of training, decades of experience, and all the rage of a father who had lost his only child. He disarmed Vexor, knocked him to the ground, and stood over him with the blade pressed to his throat. "Do it," Vexor hissed. "Kill me. Prove that humans are just as savage as we always believed." Daniel wanted to. Every fiber of his being wanted to push that blade forward and watch the life drain from Vexor's eyes. It would be justice. It would be revenge. But then he thought of Kevin. His son had died trying to protect innocent people. He had chosen mercy over violence, compassion over hatred. Killing Vexor like this would not bring Kevin back. It would only make Daniel into the kind of monster his son had stood against. "No," Daniel said. "You don't get to die as a soldier. You're going to live. You're going to face trial. And the whole galaxy is going to see what the Zorath really are." He knocked Vexor unconscious and looked at the others. The freed prisoners stood watching him with something like awe. "Get them to the forest," Daniel ordered. "We're not done yet." As they escaped into the night, Lisa's voice crackled through the radio. Her words made Daniel's blood run cold. "Daniel, I'm picking up a transmission. A Zorath warship is entering Earth's atmosphere." Vexor activated an emergency beacon. "They're going to destroy everything within 50 miles of the base." Daniel looked at the stars above him. Somewhere up there, death was coming. They had 2 hours to stop it. The warship appeared in the night sky like a second moon. It was massive, bristling with weapons that could level cities. Its lights cast a cold glow over the mountains, turning the forest into a landscape of sharp shadows. Daniel stood at the edge of the tree line, watching it descend. Behind him, the freed Sasquatch huddled together, too weak and scared to run. Grok, Tarn, and the warriors formed a protective circle around them. Lisa worked frantically on a captured Zorath communication device, trying to break through the encryption. "How long until they fire?" Daniel asked. "The warship needs to get into position first," Lisa said. "Maybe 90 minutes. After that, they'll wipe out everything in the blast zone. The base, the forest, every town within 50 miles. Including Pine Ridge. Daniel thought of the people in that town, the families. The children, the ones who had done nothing wrong. The Zorath were willing to kill them all just to cover up their crimes. "There has to be a way to stop them," Tarn said. "There might be." Lisa held up the communication device. "If I can access the Zorath emergency broadcast system, I can send a message to every ship and station in the sector. If we expose what Vexor was doing here, the kidnapping, the experiments, the murder of civilians, the Galactic Council will have to respond. Will they care?" Grok asked. "They have ignored Zorath crimes before. They ignored crimes that happened in secret. But if we broadcast the evidence to everyone, they can't pretend it didn't happen. Public opinion matters, even in galactic politics." Daniel dragged Vexor's unconscious body forward. "We have something better than evidence. We have a confession." They woke the commander with a bucket of cold water. Vexor's eyes snapped open, filled with hate. He tried to rise, but Tarn's massive hand pressed him back down. "You are going to talk," Daniel said. "You are going to tell the galaxy exactly what you did on this planet." Vexor laughed. "Why would I do that? My people will rescue me. Your world will burn. Look around you." Daniel gestured at the Sasquatch warriors, their eyes glowing in the firelight. "Your people aren't coming. And even if they do you think you'll survive long enough to be rescued?" For a long moment, Vexor was silent. Then he looked at the warship in the sky, calculating his odds. "If I talk, you let me live? If you talk, I hand you over to the Galactic Council, instead of letting Tarn tear you apart. That's the only deal you're getting." Vexor's jaw tightened. But he was a survivor above all else. He nodded. Lisa set up the recording equipment. The communication device was now connected to every galactic frequency she could reach. When the red light turned on, Vexer began to speak. He confessed everything. The secret hunts, the experiments on sentient beings, the murder of Kevin Cole and dozens of others who had dared to question Zorath authority. He named officers, dates, and locations. He provided details that could not be denied or explained away. When he finished, Lisa broadcast the recording to the entire sector. The effect was immediate. Within minutes, transmissions flooded in from across the galaxy. Alien news networks picked up the story. Diplomats demanded answers. Several species that had suffered under Zorath peacekeeping added their own accusations. The warship stopped its descent. "They're receiving new orders," Lisa reported, monitoring the communications. "The Galactic Council is demanding they stand down. Will they listen?" Tarn asked Don as if in answer. The warship's weapons powered up. Targeting lights swept across the mountains. "They're going to fire anyway," Daniel realized. "They're going to destroy the evidence and claim it was a necessary military action." He looked at his allies Lisa, Grok, Tarn, and the Sasquatch warriors who had risked everything for their people. They had come so far. They had won against impossible odds. And now it might all end in fire from the sky. "Get everyone deeper into the caves," Daniel ordered. "The mountains might provide some protection. What about you?" Grok asked. Daniel picked up a Zorath plasma rifle. "I'm going to give them something else to shoot at." He ran toward the base before anyone could stop him. The facility was mostly empty now, its soldiers either dead or scattered. Daniel made his way to the command center, where the base's own defense systems waited. Lisa's voice crackled through his radio. "Daniel, what are you doing?" "This base has anti-ship missiles. Vexer installed them in case anyone tried to shut down his operation." Daniel found the control panel and began activating the weapons. "I'm going to give that warship a reason to focus on me instead of the mountains. You'll die. Maybe, but everyone else might live." The missiles launched with a roar that shook the mountain. They streaked into the sky, trailing fire, heading straight for the warship. The warship's defenses activated. Point defense cannons destroyed most of the missiles before they hit. But two got through, striking the ship's hull and causing explosions that lit up the night. The warship turned its attention to the base. Its main weapons fired, and Daniel felt the world shake as energy beams tore through metal and stone. He ran through collapsing corridors, trying to reach the exit, knowing he probably would not make it. Then he saw the light dot. It came from above, not weapon fire, but something else. Ships. Dozens of them. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, surrounding the Zorath warship. "Galactic Peacekeeping Fleet," Lisa reported, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're ordering the Zorath to surrender. If they fire one more shot, they'll be destroyed." The warship hesitated. For a terrible moment, Daniel thought they would fire anyway, choosing death over dishonor. But then its weapons powered down. Its lights changed from red to white, the universal signal of surrender. Daniel fell to his knees in the rubble of the command center. Blood ran from a dozen wounds. His body screamed with pain. But he was alive. They had won. The Galactic Council arrived 3 days later. Investigators swarmed the base, documenting everything. Vexer and his surviving officers were taken into custody, their immunity stripped, their ranks erased. They would face trial for war crimes, a trial broadcast. To every corner of the galaxy. The Sasquatch were officially recognized as a protected sentient species. No longer would they hide in the shadows, afraid of being hunted. The Council established their territory as sovereign land, off-limits to any outsider without permission. Daniel watched from a distance as the galaxy's attention focused on this small corner of Earth. Reporters came from 100 worlds, all wanting to know about the human who had started a war with nothing but a knife and his grief. He did not give interviews. He did not want fame. He just wanted peace. On the 7th day, he walked into the forest alone. He found his way to Kevin's grave, under the old oak tree where his wife also rested. He sat there for a long time, not speaking, just feeling the weight of everything that had happened. Footsteps approached. Grok and Tarn emerged from the trees, moving with their usual silent grace. "We have been looking for you," Grok said. "I needed some time alone." Tarn sat down beside him. The young Sasquatch had changed in the weeks since their first meeting. The anger in his eyes had softened, replaced by something calmer. "My sister is recovering," Tarn said. "She asked me to thank you. She doesn't need to thank me. I didn't do it for thanks. We know." Grok lowered himself to the ground, his massive form surprisingly gentle. "You did it for him." He nodded toward Kevin's grave. Daniel was quiet for a moment. He would have hated all the killing. He believed in peace and talking things out. He thought everyone deserved mercy. He sounds wise. He was. Wiser than me. Daniel touched the grave marker, feeling the letters of his son's name. "I hope wherever he is, he's not too disappointed in his old man." Grok placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. It was warm and heavy, like the grip of a brother. "You showed mercy when you could have taken revenge. You saved lives when you could have taken them. Your son would be proud." Daniel felt something break inside him, not painfully, but like a dam releasing water that had been held back too long. Tears ran down his face for the first time since Kevin's death. Tarn and Grok waited with him, patient and still. They did not try to comfort him with words. They simply stayed, sharing his grief, bearing witness to his pain. When the tears finally stopped, Daniel felt lighter than he had in months. The hole in his heart was still there, but it no longer consumed him. "What will you do now?" Grok asked. Daniel looked at the forest around him, the trees, the mountains, the land that had become his battlefield and his sanctuary. "I don't know. I don't have anywhere else to go." Grok and Tarn exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them. "You have a place with us," Grok said. "You are a warrior without a tribe. We are a tribe that has learned to trust a warrior. Stay with us. Be our brother." Daniel thought about it. He thought about the empty house in Pine Ridge, the memories that haunted every room. He thought about the life he had lived before, a life of war and loss and loneliness. And he thought about the future. Not revenge, not grief, but something new. Something that felt almost like hope. "Okay," he said. "I'll stay." Tarn grinned. Grok nodded with satisfaction. Together, the three of them walked into the forest. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Somewhere in the distance, other Sasquatch called out greetings, welcoming their new brother home. Daniel Cole had lost everything. His wife, his son, his purpose. But in the